Dzisiaj gościmy w domu pana Marka Bullera, byłego pilota śmigłowców wojskowych, kolekcjonera i współtwórcę cudownego, butikowego hotelu Zamkowy w Darłowie. Hello Mark.
Dzień dobry.
Thank you for invitation.
Dzień dobry, Lucas. Thank you for coming to visit us here in Darwowo.
Mark, you were a US military pilot serving for many years at Germany. Then you met a gorgeous Polish lady, moved to Poland. Your wife started a fantastic boutique hotel at Darłowo. Tell us, why Poland? Why did you choose Poland? Why not Spain or Italy?
Well, the weather is certainly better in Spain and Italy than it is here. But after serving, like you said, about 15 years in Germany with the US Army, I managed to collect quite a few military items. Some in the background here, vehicles, aircraft, and you know, the Germans, this is a very densely populated area, and they just don't have really place to enjoy and to use these military vehicles. And Poland has normally enough room, and the people here in Poland are very pro-military equipment. They're interested in it. They like to look at it. They like to be told about it. And in Germany, they're just not interested in this kind of thing. So I chose Poland. Of course, because my wife is also Polish, and yes, some of the most beautiful women in the world are here. Why should I go somewhere else?
Fantastic, fantastic, Mark. You were flying different helicopters during your service. Which one you liked the best? Did you have a favorite one type?
Yes, my favorite helicopter is the one that works correctly all the time and never crashes. No, it's hard to say if there's a favorite one. You know, the older helicopters are, of course, much more simple, easier to maintain, of course, much cheaper. But the more modern helicopters are, of course, easier to fly, have more dependable systems, but are very expensive, you know. But most of my flight time is in the UH-1 Huey, the Vietnam model. And so, of course, that is quite nostalgic for me.
Very well. Hueys. It's like a legend in the United States.
Huey.
That's right. Talking about Hueys, they started its production in 1959 and the last machine were delivered at 1986. I've heard that the last Huey was retired in 2016, which is actually a very long time on duty, isn't it?
Very long.
And what came instead of Hueys to his army?
Well, the Huey was replaced finally with the UH-60 Blackhawk, which is, of course, a very, very good machine. I think it'll be as legendary as the Huey, if not more legendary, because it's just a very dependable and a very adaptable helicopter. They've used it for so many missions in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and it just, if they need longer range, they put more fuel tanks on it. It can carry that fuel. It can do whatever pretty much they want it to do so far, and do it dependably. It has a very good safety record, so I'm sure the Blackhawk will go into history also, be in service many years.
It's very popular, the Blackhawk. We just purchased...
built now in Poland, there in Mielec.
Yeah, well, we just purchased a few Blackhawks recently now in our for our service. Yeah. What about, I understand the cost difference were huge between those new Lockheed toys and the good old Bell, wasn't it?
Well, yes, you know, of course you have to compare dollars to then and dollars to now, but still I compare it to cars, you know, the old Polonaise you could get for a certain price, and today a BMW or even a Chrysler from America or something like this, it's not so cheap anymore. And aircraft is even, I say, worse or even bigger difference. You know, Hueys around the Vietnam time frame were costing the Army about $625,000, a little more than $500,000. delivered, and I think the Black Hawk now is $35 million, something like this. I don't know.
Or even more.
Or more, depending, of course, what
on equipment,
on
yeah.
board. But so, yeah.
Okay, so so you guys, when you were flying on Hueys, serving on Hueys, suddenly you got first Black Hawks. You must be shocked about the price.
Yeah. Well, shocked, but very glad that the Army and of course the engineers were able to address some of the weak points on the Huey. It just still didn't have really enough power. They got rid of that problem, and you know, 2 blades, which is not so good when it comes to auto rotation. I mean, you don't have a lot of energy in the rotor system. Black Hawk has 4 blades, and Huey has skids, and even in the Me Too, it has wheels, you know, so we went finally to wheels, which is much better for a helicopter rather than skids. So they got rid of a lot of the inherent problems in the Huey because they wanted to keep it also simple and cheap at the time. So yeah, the Black Hawk is a good machine.
Good. It seems that, well, you mentioned the Me Too, and it seems that here in Poland have a problem. As you know, we have a certain fleet of old Me Too machines. Do you know this machine, Me Too, Mark?
Yes, I know the machine fairly well. I've flown it. I have quite a few hours in the Me Too. I have to say, I really like the Me Too. You know, it's an aircraft that has a little bit of a bad record in Poland, or kind of a maybe not so positive record, but this is not because of the aircraft.
At least recent years.
Yeah, this is mostly because, in my opinion, this is my personal opinion, that the pilots, the Polish pilots that have been flying the Me Too, they're just lacking in training. And they have asked these pilots and the aircraft, the Me Too, to do things that it was not designed to do. It's just, you know, they're used to seeing a Black Hawk or a Eurocopter come in and do something, and then they say to the Me Too guys, okay, go rescue those people too. And they try to do things with the Me Too. It's just not designed to do, but it's a very good and very dependable helicopter, and I like it. And I think if I had the choice between taking a Me Too to fly or a Huey, I would take the Me Too.
It's amazing, actually.
It won't pick up exactly as much weight as a Huey will, but if you look at the cost of operation, the dependability, a Huey has a whole truckload of special parts, special test equipment and special tools. A Me Too has about 1 box of special tools and parts. And you know, a Me Too is simple. Huey has a lot of black boxes in it. Something goes wrong, you can't open the black box and fix it. You have to change the whole black box. Black box costs maybe $20,000. Me Too has a gray box, but screws all around. You take off the screws, you look inside, oh, there's a bad tube or something. You change this. 30 slutty, put the decal back on the top, and it's flying again. This is much better than the Huey. Of course, for the military-industrial complex in the West, they like to sell the Army the $17,000 box. You know?
Of course. Yeah. I would do the same, actually.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so did I understand correct? Do you think that this old Me Too could still do some job in our military?
I think for sure. You know, if the Me Too, if you fly it as the book says, what it's designed to be capable of doing, very good aircraft, and it will do what it's asked to do. Not only that, the Me Too is ripe. They know all of the problems, what's going to happen to a Me Too when it sits for a long time, when it sits in the sun. And the new aircraft, you know, it's always lots of surprises. You know, the Germans bought the NH-90, and now 80% of them are grounded because of corrosion and this and that and electronic problems. And, you know, the new aircraft, they don't know all the little things that go wrong with it. And the Me Too, is a ripe aircraft. They know how to keep it flying.
Of course, it takes time to train a pilot on a helicopter. This is correct. When you have the older machines, sometimes it's sufficient enough, right?
And the Me Too is from learning the basics of helicopter flying with relation to the wind and the weather and things like this. A Me Too is certainly sufficient. And if you can learn to fly a Me Too, any of the modern helicopters are only easier for the pilots because they have more help with automatic systems and stabilization systems and.
So do you think maybe the good thing would be to fly Me Too, modernize them somehow, fly Me Too, and on the side of it do the basic training on simulation, for example, for new machines?
Yes, I mean, the Polish engineers and military tried to modernize the Me Too when they built the W3 Sokol. Yes, it is better in some respects than a Me Too. It'll do more things, has more power, but it's also about twice as expensive as a Me Too. So you have to put everything on a vaga and say, well, you know, what's better, 2 Me Toos or 1 Sokol? But 1 Sokol costs even more than 2 Me Toos. So that's
correct.
You know, but then you have to have 2 crews, so that means 2 times training for the Me Toos. So you have to figure these costs. But I think Poland would be smart to fly off the remaining hours, the resources that they have on the fleet of Me Toos. And of course, once they become no longer cost effective to keep in service, then it's time to replace them. But they will, as long as they're cost effective, this aircraft will do a lot of things what the Polish military needs it to do. Of course, the Me Too is designed as a cold weather aircraft. It has heating systems, de-ice systems. It wouldn't be so good for hot weather Iraq. It doesn't have the power in hot climates. So if we're going to be fighting wars in hot climate places, then the Me Too is not the airplane you want, or helicopter. But for cold weather climate, it's fine. I mean, it's for the cost, of course. If you have a boatload of money, then you can take something better, you know, but the Me Too is good.
So the cost efficiency is the key, actually.
Yeah. And
right.
I think as long as, of course, they have a big supply or had a big supply of spare parts, but as these diminish over the years and then they have to go make new spare parts, well, this will cost more money, of course. And at the point when they're too expensive to operate and to maintain for what they can deliver, then it's time to change. But as long as they're cost effective, use them. They're good, dependable, safe aircraft. If the pilots are trained well, and if the military or the mission doesn't ask it to do more than the aircraft is capable of doing, you know. That's like any aircraft.
Of course. Mark, about your collection, which is actually amazing. I have seen it and I'm very impressed about your collection. Can you tell us a little bit about it? What do you have?
Well, because I've always had an interest in military equipment, because it's not that it's designed necessarily to kill people and fight wars, but it's designed always to be the best quality that any country can produce for their troops, of course, for the money they have. So I always was interested in military equipment of all types, but and being a pilot, of course, I would like to collect aircraft, helicopters, and things like this, but I'm not a millionaire, so I was limited financially on what I could afford to collect. So my collection is mostly vehicles, although I do have a Me Too helicopter and some rocket pieces and tank and some of those things. Yeah, but it's, you know, as a normal person, we're not all millionaires, so I've tried to collect what I can for the money I had.
Okay, rocket pieces. So
yeah.
What I see behind you, that is a piece of old Scud rockets, which actually, I don't know if you know, but we just purchased some Patriot system, anti-missile system of middle range, and these old PAC-2 Lockheed production rockets were supposed to fight those Scuds, actually, right? Which is just behind you. And I can see that you have the old Tochka, Russian one as well. Is that correct?
Yes, and you have to realize that the Patriot rocket, this is a defensive rocket. This is mostly designed to shoot down aircraft or other incoming rockets. It's not like a Scud, which was a ground-to-ground attack rocket, more or less. It's not a defensive rocket. The Scud is an offensive rocket, the same as a Tochka.
That's right.
And the Patriot system is designed to defend against not only Scuds and Tochkas, because now the Russians have much more modern rockets.
Of course.
Yeah,
No,
but,
I was just saying
yes.
that was the history. Yeah, they
Correct.
we had some, or they had some confirmed shot down Scots in Middle East, in the old days. But of course today we are thinking about Iskanders.
And I think the Patriot is, of course, it's not a cheap missile system, but I'm sure that it will do mostly the task that Poland needs it to do. That's what the Americans are using, the Japanese use it, the Koreans use it, a lot of other countries use it, and I think it's not a bad rocket. So some of this stuff, yeah, these are just, my collection pieces, the Scud engine, this has all been demilitarized, and these are school models of the Tochka head for the guidance of the rocket. This is from a SA-6 rocket. This is, I'm sorry, the SA-3, and that's the search radar. This is a ground-to-air anti-aircraft rocket. In the back there is a Cobra. This is a Russian anti-tank rocket, ground-to-ground, of course. Yeah, like I said, if I had the money, I would collect lots of airplanes, but I don't have the space for that. So rockets are part of aviation, so I do. And all of these pieces were basically put to the Schrott, to the Svom. So, they're nothing usable or alive in this as far as military value anymore. This is historical, interesting value.
Sure, but it's still very interesting to look at them, especially inside.
This one here is 60s technology, but still, if you look at how it was built, and you think the technology that they had in the 60s, it's pretty interesting.
Yes, it is indeed. And you have the gyroscope as well for the Tochka rocket?
Yes, I managed to get a gyroscope. This is for the guidance control system for the Tochka. Also a very interesting piece of equipment, Okay, this is the brain of the Tochka, really. This is the gyroscopic guidance control system for the Tochka. Of course, this is late 60s, middle 70s technology. But you can see the Russians are quite advanced in their design and their thought of how to put together rocket guidance systems, and also their electronic talents. They're not bad, The Tochka was an interesting rocket in that it was guided by inertial navigation, which this gyroscope had, but it also has computer chipboards here, which allowed it to be guided by comparison. They would send an aircraft, reconnaissance aircraft, over the target area. They would photograph the target area, and then these images would be transferred to the Tochka brain here, to this computer, and as the Tochka was coming to the target, it would compare the photographs of where it's supposed to go to what it sees when it was en route. So I don't know how successful the system was, but the idea, we used this idea in America also, this terrain comparison. And the Tochka is quite accurate, as a matter of fact, over 120 kilometer range and accurate down to about 50 meters plus or minus. So without GPS, that's pretty accurate.
Okay, Mark, now show us some of your stuff. We'll go around your place and tell us what you have. And I don't know if you're sometimes selling some of your stuff, changing, bidding, willing and dealing, you know. Just basically tell us what you have and what would be for sale, for example. Maybe someone would be interested to purchase some of this marvelous vehicles.
You're always acquiring, and when you find something better or something else you like, you sell. Then, you know, unfortunately, I don't have enough space for everything to store everything I'd like to have. So some things I run out of space, I have to sell. But no, I've been collecting the military vehicles for 25, 30 years now. So now I've got 20 some odd trucks and Jeeps and Blazers and this kind of thing. This is one American Army. Most of this is American Army equipment that I have. Some of the Russian equipment. This is a 5-ton truck from the 1970s, 1980s. It's a crane for lifting engines and rockets, things like that. So that's one of them. The other one next to it is from the 80s, middle 80s and 90s. That's the Chevrolet Blazer. It was a little larger than a Jeep. They used them mostly for administrative things, but it is four-wheel drive, so it's possible to go cross-country with the Blazer also. It's designed to, like say, the rockets, I mean, lifting things like that, but in the front it has a self-recovery winch, has a winch in the back for 25 tons, straight line pull. You run it through a roller, you can get 50 tons out of it, so you can pull a lot of stuff with it.
And it's still working.
Oh, of course.
It's in operational conditions, isn't it?
Of course. If you have something that doesn't work, you don't need it. This is the famous American 2.5-ton 6x6 truck. This is the modern engine with the Caterpillar engine, but the basic truck was first brought into the Army in 1952 or 3, of course then with a gasoline engine, but it's been in service now for 55 years, of course modernized along, but it's a good workhorse. It's the old famous deuce and a half.
Sure, but I can see that girls are still wanted.
Oh, you know, the soldiers, we always want girls.
That's right.
American Army has now a lot of women. They can't drive the stick shift, so they have the automatic transmission.
Sure.
But really, modern day automatic transmissions are better. Now they're so far along and developed that they're better, more dependable than the stick shift.
What do we have here, Mark? Tell us.
This is my International Harvester M10 rough terrain forklift, Stablarka, you know. Well, when you have a hobby like this, you got heavy stuff to move around, you need a Stablarka. I have the crane, but sometimes you need, with a pallet or something, a big Stabler. This will pick up about 12 to 15 tons, so it'll pick up 15 tons, but of course the rear end comes up, you add a little more weights on the back, it'll do 15 tons.
Sure. Okay, Mark, I believe this is the mobile workshop somehow,
Exactly.
isn't
This
it?
is a big M944 mobile field workshop. Has a complete welding system on it, a 15 kW generator, a tokarka, so a lathe, air compressor, all the shop tools that you need, and valve cutting machines, fräse machine. Everything's in here. I'll show you how it works.
Oh, fantastic.
It opens up like this. That's why they call it a Batmobile. And it's pretty cool. You put a Namyot all the way around it, a tent, and then it's all enclosed. It's got its own heater system in there, just no air conditioning. So if you're in Iraq, it's hot. These fold down as your workshop table, but not a lot of room here, but you can see the tokarka and everything in here and the way it's set up.
Mark, is it still in combat use, this type
Army
of
still
equipment?
has these. They still use them, yeah, as mobile field workshops. This one, I guess the Army reduced. They thought they didn't need this one, but I'm glad because now I have it.
Of course.
I use it.
Okay, this hook here on the top, it is for what? It is to pull up engines or
This has
what?
a capacity of 1.5 tons. Yeah, if you have any kind of heavy engine or something that you need to put in here or unload work that you've done on the, excuse me, on the tokarka, that way you have an indoor crane, if you will, an overhead crane for moving it in and out of here. There's a hydraulic press on the left here, 25-ton press for bearings and things like that. Well, when we're done, just lift the stairs out and fold them up. And we're on our way. Well, this is my M578 VTR, Vehicle Tracked Recovery. They consider it, the U.S. Army considers it a light recovery vehicle, although it weighs 25 tons. It's based on the M107 and 108 howitzer chassis, which the Army had. The German Army also bought them from America. They were artillery pieces. And this was the recovery crane that should something like that break down, go out and recover it. Also was used to take the M113, the armored personnel carrier. The Polish version is the BVP, that type of troop transporter that this was designed to bring them back to base if they were broken down or not able to drive. This picks up 15 tons. The crane has a 500 horsepower Detroit 8V71 turbocharged diesel with an Allison cross-drive transmission. Nice piece of equipment. Just uses a little bit more fuel than the average car, about 400 liters for 100 kilometers.
That's a fine piece of a tank, actually, isn't it?
Everyone should have one.
Okay, Mark, here we have another nice piece of equipment. It's based on T-72 tank, right?
That's correct. Yeah, this is my lovely choke, as I call it. This is a T-72 TK. The Polish call it the WZ3, I think. This is a armored recovery vehicle. The Polish version is built by BULLER. It's a little different. It has a Zwik, the crane on the left side. This one was built by the Czechs for the East German Army. Has a crane on the right side. It's a 20-ton, 18-ton crane. Has 3 winches on it, one 25-ton, one main winch is a 60-ton, and a small help winch for 5 tons. This has the V46 diesel engine, a V12 with 840 horsepower. This one I got 20 years ago when the East German Army collapsed. I was able to buy it. There were only 3 of these built for the East German Army. This is serial number 1. Serial number 2 went to England to the Imperial War Museum, and serial number 3 is in Dresden in the German Army Museum. So this is the only one in private hands in the entire world, so it's a pretty rare piece. I drive it at the Darlowo Slot. As you asked me earlier why I came to Poland. Well, I should say also every year my very good friend Marian Laskowski organizes the historical military vehicle slot here in Darlovo. And of course, I first came to Darlovo to visit the slot. And that's why, because I have many military vehicles, I ended up coming to move here and live here, you know. So I've had this since 1995 about, is when I purchased this. And fortunately, at that time it was not necessary to cut it or anything. Nowadays, the Germans want you to cut them all up, you know, even though this has no guns. In Germany, just the armor plate is considered a war weapon, so you have to cut it. But this one is still in original condition. And I'm glad that it survived, because only Germany you have to cut armor. No other country says you have to cut armor. Armor is nothing but steel, you know. So it's a really interesting piece. I drove it at slot many times. Now it's kind of, it all runs, all fully operational, but it's a little bit too valuable to drive at the slot and just, you know, I don't want anything to happen to it, you know. So I keep it more or less in the garage most of the time.
So I understand, and if there is only 3 pieces of this kind, you know, in the world, I mean, yes, I believe it has a quite value.
Well, the original price for this was 5.5 million East German marks, but at that time that was about $1 million or $1.5 million. I don't know the exact exchange rate. And this has only 118 kilometers on it, so it's new, really, as far as usage goes. And I have spare engines, spare transmissions, and 25 tons of spare parts for it, so that's good, you know.
Well, would you consider to sell it?
Well, you know, you never say no.
Okay, are we talking millions or hundred thousands?
No. This is no longer considered a current day modern military vehicle. I mean, the Czech army uses these. Poland still has the T-72, the P-91, I think they call them now. But these are, of course, modernized with more electronics and things like that. But the basic chassis is still used. But no, this someday will end up, I hope, in a good museum or in a private collection who will keep it nice like I have over the years.
About Hotel Zamkowy. I have dined at Zamkowy's restaurant. Cuisine is marvelous, particularly a goose, which you serve on different ways. The other dishes are excellent as well. Who has a passion to cook, you or your wife?
Well, of course, who has a passion to cook? It's my wife. She is really a passionate cook, and if you don't have the passion to cook, then cooking is work. If you have a passion to cook, it's fun. But of course, I have the passion to eat, so I always like to enjoy her good cooking. And the restaurant here, we wanted to open something in Darlovo, which was not particularly expensive, but which was going to offer the people, both the tourists and the Polish people, some of the old traditional Pomeranian food. Not necessarily German, but Pomeranian. Very famous in this area was the goose. Up until the end of the Second War, there was more than 100,000 goose, also geese, geschlachtet, butchered in this town for the meat industry, also for the Wurst, they made the liverwurst from goose, they made the pâté from goose, they had the breast from goose. So this is a very traditional Darlovian Rügenwalder plate. Of course, we have also here fresh fish from the Baltic Sea, so we have very nice dorsch here, cod fish, which is also a good seller here. Yeah, but I enjoy eating, you know. I can cook also if I have to, but Emilia is the passionate cook.
Hotel Zamkowy is placed in Darłowo at a very nice location. Very close, actually not even close, but right to Darłowo Castle.
Right next door.
Right next door.
In the town center.
This is right. From chapter to tourist business. How do you find yourself, first being a military pilot, all the way to entertaining your guests at evenings at Zamkowy?
Well, of course I enjoy flying. I have been flying for 38 years now. But I also like to entertain my guests, provide them nice food and a nice atmosphere. And, as you get older, you can't fly till you're 95 years old. So at some point you have to slowly reduce. And we'll see how long I can do this restaurant. With my wife, of course, because she's the boss, she's the worker, the hard worker. I'm just kind of like this meuble around here, decoration.
Mark, I can see a few nice items at your hotel, like this table, for example. What is this table? Where did it came from? What is it? Is it 16th, 15th, 17th century? It looks quite old.
It is old. Our building is from 1740. This was originally, when it was built, my understanding, of course I wasn't alive in this time, originally was built as a muin, a buller for grinding grain, next to the Dnieper River here, but did not work very long in that until they built about 50, 80 meters from here a bigger muin, and then they used this only as a bake and brew house. So they brewed beer in these two rooms, and over in our reception that was the oven for baking bread. So this is back to 1740. The table, of course, at the end of the war, when the Germans left and the Russians came, they removed everything of value. So this place was an empty shell. But after the war, it was used as a school anyway. But this table I bought in France. This is, we don't know exactly how old it is, but all of the metal nails and the pieces are iron, they're not steel. And they started with steel around 1710, 20, 30. So we think this is from around 1700, also beginning of the 18th century. Solid oak, that thick. I'm sure it's served many, many, many meals. It's getting old, it's got some cracks, but you know how we all get older and get cracked,
Yes, this is true. This table is a really nice piece of antiquity. And there is a lot of nice old weapons and things at your place.
Wow.
So everyone who has the keys, who is keen on old stuff and collection stuff and collector's stuff.
One original rifle from, this is a Charlesville rifle. This is from Napoleon time, from 1808. Original, still in functioning condition.
Fantastic.
I have several of the flintlock pistols there, original, and some of the kufeleks and the clocks and things from the last 50 to 100 years to 200 years old.
So definitely your passion is not only the military vehicles.
Not only military vehicles and rockets.
Generally the collecting items. This is
I like old gobelins, I like art. Of course, I like nice old meuble. This is
furnitures.
And of course, good food. This is all in one package. You can't just be well, you can, but I mean it's only interested in military stuff. This is too narrow of a vision. You must be interested in cultural things as well, and I am, as well as in the Polish history and military history and cultural history, especially in Pommern here.
Well, I can see you are a bit of a Renaissance man, I might say. And the other thing is that I can see that you like this simple life.
Yes,
Maybe not that simple, though. Well, Mark, anyway, thank you very much for your hospitality.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, well, thank you for having us here. We had a great time with you. We had so much fun. We had so much good food. we will recommend your place anywhere in the
I
world.
invite really everyone from all the way from Rzeszów to Warsaw. When you're interested in coming to the seaside for a small vacation, stop by Hotel Restaurant Zamkowi. I'm sure you will not be disappointed.